Are you for whom the bell tolls? Welcome. Let's gather and grab a chair if you're interested in hearing what the Property Development Committee's been up to. We just have one mic to share, so I'll do most of the talking today. But we are blessed with four of the 5 members of our Property Development Committee are here today to answer questions afterwards or during. And we have Heather, we have Chris, Janet, and myself. We're 4 of the 5 members of the Property Development Committee that the Parish Council established about a year and a half ago to tackle the issues surrounding sale of surplus property and investing the proceeds in the redevelopment and refurbishment of the church. And many of you, I think all of you know that we've had this project going for quite a while. It was the fundraising for it was through the Seize the Day campaign, and the project's to be largely paid for either from the Seize the Day fundraising and the sale proceeds of sale of surplus property, mainly the rectory lot and the portion of our parking lot that we won't need anymore after the gym has been removed. I'm going to talk about, and we have some wonderful drawings up here that I'm going to point to and show you things about and explain, and then you might want to come up, and I really will only probably be about 15 minutes, with the hope that you can then sort of gather around the drawings and the pictures, have questions for any of us, and because we're very familiar with them, and we can sort of explain the floor plan and where the kitchen's going to be and where the storage is going to be. Everyone wants storage. And kitchen. And notice I'm not saying kitchenette anymore. I've expunged that word from our vocabulary. But really there's 4 things I want to update you on. And by the way, much of this material is also in writing in the newsletter. If you looked at Friday's newsletter, there's a little update from the Property Development Committee there. The 4 things are the sort of the status of land sales, subdivision, and marketing, what we're doing with the land, which is providing the bulk of the funds for this project. We're going to give you an update on the design, what the building is going to look like, or what our current design looks like. We'll talk about costs and money stuff, how much we've spent, how much we've got, what's coming next, that sort of thing. And then we'll finish off talking about timing and next steps. Everybody sort of wants to know, well, when's it going to happen, and how can I plan for this? And you want to save that date for the grand opening when we come out with a big pair of scissors to cut the ribbon. I can't give you the date yet, but we're all going to want to be there. So those are the 4 things. And starting with land sales, because probably 85 who have put it on the market last year or the year before. It would not have been a good time. If you're familiar with the neighborhood, you would know that there are a couple of residential lots that were for sale for a very long time, and the price was dropped several times before they sold them. But the market is picking up with interest rates coming down. Lots are starting to be sold again, and our timing could be very good. We're hoping it will be. So we've been following 2 streams or 2 activities in terms of dealing with the land. One is our discussion with the district about the subdivision and the rezoning. That has gone at, I would say, a glacial pace. It is the district really didn't want to deal with it while they were dealing with the provincial initiatives on multifamily zoning on single-family residential lots, and they basically put us on the shelf for many months. Yes, Janet?
I think we should point out that we had everything in on time and followed up with them, but they have not been responding.
Yes.
When
Yes.
talking about the glacial pace, it's on their side, not on ours.
Yeah, it's the usual district glacial pace, not aggravated by us so much. But in any event, they are getting interested again. They're starting to throw questions at us, things like where's the driveway going to be for the rectory once we sell off the other part of the parking lot, that sort of thing. So we are getting engaged with the district, and we hope to have and expect to have their preliminary questions and wish list to us by Christmas or before Christmas. How long that list is will depend how long it takes and how expensive it'll be to get our next final application into them, that then goes through about a 6 or 8 month process. So that's where we are with the district. You should recognize that our application is a little complicated for a number of reasons. One is because our zoning is not yet residential for a chunk of the land. It's zoned for a church, some of the land. We have this district footpath that runs through our parking lot that the district is jealously trying to guard. And we have these driveway issues that the district has raised because if you've noticed, the driveway for the rectory comes through our parking lot. If we sell the parking lot, how is anyone going to get to the rectory? So that's a bit of an issue, but not an unexpected one. We will work our way through it. Secondly, on the marketing of the land, we have engaged, we went through a bit of a beauty contest to talk to a couple of firms that would market our land, and we picked Colliers. Colliers has been marketing a lot of the properties to developers around here, and they have tremendous breadth. Through Colliers, we expect to be marketing this land, our 2 lots, to small and medium and large developers throughout Canada and even throughout the world. They really have global reach. So we've hired Colliers. They are putting together the materials. You won't see a for sale sign up. We're doing a different kind of process. It's not like selling your house where you decide on a price and put up a for sale sign. We are actually going out through Colliers to the development community to seek their expressions of interest in us, in our land, and making it a bit of a contest for them to see what price they will pay. If we find a developer that wants those 2 lots together, we'll then negotiate with them and work with them and come back to Parish Council and then to the vestry for approval of a deal. So that's where we are with land sales. If we were really fortunate and lucky, we'd be able to presumably sell that land sometime next year and get the bulk of the proceeds at that point to pay for the construction that would start sometime in 2025 as well. Now, the second thing I was going to talk about was the design update. When we took the plan that we showed you last year at Vestry, just before Vestry, I think, when we went through a lot of architectural development of that plan and some structural analysis of things. You might remember we hired a bunch of engineers and specialists in the spring. They did things like looking at our beams, looking at our foundation, looking at the electrical systems, everything in our church to figure out whether we could, basically the constructability and whether we could build the design that we wanted. And then we had a professional firm, a professional expert tell us what they thought it would all cost. We ran into sort of 2 problems. One problem was cost, because the original design was going to add, the design you saw a year ago was going to add about 5,000 square feet of new space to the church building, and that was going to be very expensive. And the second thing about the design was our desire to put, you might remember me calling it putting a sweater around the building to keep us warm. Our desire to put a very healthy sweater on this A-frame was going to put a lot of weight on the beams, on those glulam beams. And they were going to need reinforcement. And the first plan for reinforcing was going to be expensive and very difficult to construct, especially on that side of the church where we have a retaining wall and that sort of thing. So our clever engineers have come up with much less expensive and aesthetically very desirable design, which will see a strip of steel that will be colored like this, run up the inside of these beams with a little fixture at the top to hold them together. So when you're in the church, you will still see the wood. You will see all this glorious wood, except we'll have a reinforcing piece up the inside of these glulam beams. That will allow us to put more insulation on the roof. Absent that, we'd be probably just doing shingles on the roof like we have now, and we only have an inch of insulation, and we'd be losing lots of heat that way. So with that, we will have a little bit less of a thinner sweater, this sort of shape of sweater instead of one of those thick ones, not like Mart's got. It'll be a thinner sweater, but one that, and not as much intrusion to the inside or the outside of our building in order to to build it, and much less expensive. So those are all wonderful things. But because adding the extra space we wanted to add was going to be very expensive, we went through a bit of an exercise to figure out, well, what do we really need? And if we add all that extra space, is it going to pay for itself through tenants and other ways that we make money off of this building? And we came up with a plan that's different, that allows us to achieve all the goals we wanted to achieve in this project, but almost completely within the footprint of our current sanctuary space and basement. We don't need to add as much exterior space to the building to accomplish the original goals. And when you do that, you dramatically reduce the cost. So what we have come up with is, and we were calling the original plan last year Plan A. And you might remember Plan A was take the gym down and build an extension out the other end that was going to have bathrooms and offices and a basement underneath with places we could rent downstairs and that sort of thing, in addition to what we have underneath here. And we have shrunk that to essentially within this space and a small addition on either side of our chapel to make a little bit of extra space. The rough numbers are, we were originally going to add about 5,000 square feet to the building. Now we're adding about 2,000 square feet to the building. So we've shaved more than, well, about 3/5 off of the extra space we were going to add. That will have some big impacts on cost. And I'm going to tell you about those designs here in a minute, because this shows what they look like. But I want to remind you what our original goals were, because we had to respect those original goals. So I have a little list here, and this is what was key to us at the time. We wanted to remove the gym and its basement. We had another flood in the gym just 2 weeks ago that we were here dealing with. There's lots of reasons to not want to have to deal with that building and spend $1 million or more on it. We obviously wanted to retain and improve the preschool space and that use of the lower part of our building. We heard from everyone. We wanted a full kitchen. We wanted to retain the interior of the sanctuary and the chapel. We wanted to, maintain and respect the beauty of our sanctuary and our chapel, and our memorial garden. We wanted to maximize our rental income where it makes sense. We want to have a welcoming face to the community. We want enough parking for us and for our tenants, and we wanted it to be affordable and sustainable. That's a summary list of what we had in mind for our goals, and the result is a new set of drawings that we're calling Plan C. We had sort of Plan A, B, C, D, E, and we've settled on Plan C, and that's what you see in front of you. But just to make it a little confusing, we have a C1 and a C2. Okay, so maybe you could tell we couldn't quite decide. But C1 is what we think of as our base case. That's the one that we're modeling on, we're business planning with, we're getting the costs for, and we're doing the design for. C2, which you'll hear about in a second, is identical in 90% of the respects. It just adds one really nice thing. It adds one really great, lovely, nice thing that we would all love to have if we can afford it, but we're not sure yet whether we can afford it. Think of it as, I don't know, the hot tub in the backyard or whatever. But, well, that maybe it's more useful than that. But we're just not sure we can do it. But it'll be a plug and play kind of thing. If we can do it someday, we'll be able to attach the C2 to the C1. So what is C1? Well, unfortunately, you're going to have to squint hard to see it. But this is our church today, seen from sort of over there, with the rectory house is here. And what we're going to do, if you can imagine taking the chapel and just putting a roof, the chapel's a flat roof now, putting an angled roof that comes out, and the chapel is right here. We're going to add a little bit of space at that end on the other side of the rock wall, and a little and then lobby space on this side of the rock wall. The chapel has a stone wall at each end. And so we're going to sort of enclose the stone walls with space on each side and put a vaulted ceiling roof on it here, because we don't like flat roofs in the new church. Flat roofs are bad. We're going to have a sloped roof here and a little belfry over our entrance at this end. So this would be looking from the north end. You would see our entrance here. This stone wall that is here is the one that is out in the parking lot at the edge of the chapel. And we have a covered walkway over here, double doors in. You can see through, and the hallway that you see through is that hallway that we come in, except now, as was always planned, it's going to be wider. It's going to be wider so that we'll have double doors in, and you can come down to double doors in here, so no more traffic jam coming and going from the church. This is sort of seen from the southwest. You can see there's our chapel sticking out here. It doesn't go out. We're not going out any farther than the edge of the chapel. We're just adding a little bit of space on this side and a little bit of space on this side outside the stone walls of the chapel. We're not increasing the size of the chapel. We're just building on the other side of those two chapel stone walls to make our entrance area our office. The office will be a small area right here that looks out onto the parking lot, but also looks into the entrance when everyone comes and goes. So the person working in the office will have full visibility to the lobby when people are coming and going. It won't be sort of tucked around, the church office won't be tucked around a corner where no one can find it. And on the other side, this will be the rector's office. Chapel stays largely unchanged. And then within the sanctuary, it's largely unchanged too, although, of course, decisions about what we do with the level and whether we do it all one level or not, those are all for the sanctuary and sorry, the name of the committee? Church and Chapel Reconfiguration Committee. So it's up to that committee to decide what we do inside here. Property Development Committee's job is to make it happen. But I don't think any decisions have been made yet about whether we would lower things to all on the same level or just build a much more usable ramp system with railings and things for getting up. That's yet to be determined. Now, I think another way of looking at it is, just one second, there's full floor plans here, but if this is our main floor of the new church, you can see, the altar here, the sanctuary here. Now, what's the best way to orient this for you? Maybe like this? You're sitting right here right now. So there's our little narthex. Right behind there is going to be storage for the chairs. So the chairs will be all stacked and stored in there. It won't be sort of a chaotic storage like it is now. In that corner will be a meeting room, because you'll notice there's two sets of stairs going up to the choir loft and down to the basement. We don't need two sets of stairs. We only need one. So we'll have one here, and over there will be a meeting room. Think of that as our replacement for the Mary Pellet room. It'll be comfortable. It'll have maybe the same furniture or better, different furniture, but it'll be a meeting space that we can use for our own meetings or gatherings if we want to work on crafts or put something together, but also very rentable space, just like the Mary Pellet room is. That will be at least very rentable when we're not also renting the sanctuary for something else.
And it can be a cry room for a Sunday.
And yes, now Sharon's been very insistent on that, and I'm not sure whether she wants to go in there and cry. but she wants a Sunday morning cry room, so it could work for that. Now, one other little detail to notice is we're planning to chop off the stairs that go from that upper area there that go down and have an at-grade entrance to the preschool down here, so that wheelchairs and people with mobility issues can just come along the sidewalk and go right into the preschool entrance. That's a real advantage for the preschool, and it's a real advantage for us for accessibility downstairs. So sanctuary stays beautiful like it is, but with a thin sweater on top, and hopefully much warmer and cooler in the summer. And you'll notice here, instead of that narrow little gap, because we're adding this is the stone wall on this side of the chapel that's outside right now, that's going to be enclosed. Here's the rector's office. We have a sort of a lobby gathering space here. That'll be good to put in, announcements or things we want to put up on stands, announcing the Thanksgiving dinner or something like that. And a much bigger entrance. This hall, here's the chapel, untouched, beautified inside, but untouched in terms of its size and space. The hallway will be wider, and this is the kitchen right here, and it will have everything it needs to have as a kitchen. But we're calling it, just so you know, we're not calling it a kitchenette. But we have to call it, and you are all sworn to do this now, we have to call it a residential kitchen. Because if it was a commercial kitchen, we'd have a whole nother world of hurt with that. So we're just putting in a residential kitchen. So it'll have residential stove, residential fridge. It'll have, we've figured out we can still have our sanitizer thing, and maybe another dishwasher or two, but it won't, it's not a commercial grade kitchen with a big fan hood so it's not like we don't need to have a chef in there. You don't have to say, "That's okay, chef," as you pass people back and forth. But that kitchen will have easy access to the sanctuary, the chapel, anywhere. And then these are the chapel stone walls. And right now, this area is the office. This area is inside the church. It's the office. This is the new land the new part we're enclosing is just here. Across here. Right now, the gym is over here, and we have that sort of slanty kind of lounge, the angled sort of lounge, and the bathrooms. We're going to put the bathrooms down here. They'll be right behind that wall. Very soundproofed, by the way. They'll be right behind that wall. A stairwell here with a very inexpensive, we found, lift kind of system. It's another way to get people that have mobility issues downstairs into the basement rooms. Remember, it's not just the preschool that will be using the basement rooms. In the odd hours or after hours, there'll be all kinds of groups that we rent space to down there. So having accessibility for them will be quite useful. If you're coming in from the parking lot, you'll come in this way to this beautiful lobby. And the office is right here with a counter and a roll-up thing so that the people in the office can keep track of whoever's coming and going, whatever's going on. The preschool will have an access down here, a stair down here from their playground straight down to here. I'm not going to go through the basement floor plan other than, very quickly, to show you that, and I'll try to orient this the same way. The preschool rooms are here with what's an indoor play area here that's going to sort of take the place of the gym. The preschool needs an indoor play area during the day, and they'll be able to use this, but we'll be able to rent this for dance class or judo or jiu-jitsu or any sort of low impact, obviously not basketball or pickleball, but sort of low impact health kind of activities can go into that space after hours, as can the Cleveland After School Daycare. They can go into that space as well. This here could be Camp Artaban's office. It's the choir room today, and we will have the new bathrooms down here, some storage, and this is where that lift from upstairs comes down. And these are mechanical type rooms. So the basement is not changing a lot, except it's getting new bathrooms and this indoor play space that we'll be able to rent for a number of other purposes. So that's the design work that we've been doing with our architects. We're currently working on getting further engineering and specialist advice on this design. Oh, I didn't tell you what C2 was. Anyone want to know? Janet wants to know because Janet really likes C2. All right. So, yeah. So you'll notice with this new entrance, by the way, we're planning on putting a belfry up above the new entrance from the parking lot with the bell on the inside I was saying to someone earlier, we won't have to worry about bats in the belfry because it's going to be inside the lobby. But you can ring it, and you can actually broadcast that outside to the community. We don't, so we'll have a bell to ring inside. It'll be in a vaulted ceiling that matches this kind of ceiling right when you come inside the door. But that's not a big lounge area. That's not a very large space for having a gathering like this or something like that. So our architects had a great idea that this covered walkway space we have out here, if it was connected, if we had doors here, there, here, and there, and we covered it and connected it, we could have a lovely lounge out there. It could be integrated into this space. It might have been Sharon that came up with the thought that it's almost like a cloisters. It's almost like the sort of cloisters you would see in a cathedral in Europe, but we're not going to have little fountains and stuff inside there. But we got the idea that if you opened up the side, you could have a lounge like this. Instead of, this is today, and so option C1 just keeps the outdoor walkway as it is today. We would refurbish it, obviously. We'd replace the rotten wood and do some landscaping in there. But you could close it all in, have big double doors from here into it, and glass on the outside looking onto the Memorial Garden. It would be beautiful. I'm sorry we just can't tell you today, because I can't tell you how often I've been asked. We can't tell you today how much more expensive C2 is. But it's also something that can come later. We may have fundraising for it some other day, or we may have a bequest or some reason that we have the funds for it. And once we have a number, we will be sure to let everyone know. But at the moment, we're planning as if it's just going to be the walkway like we have there until we have a better idea of what that will cost and what C2 or the lounge, we're calling it. We're not calling it a cloisters, although you could. We're calling it a lounge. And imagine the extra daylight you would have coming in here. There's so many advantages to that. If for people that want to rent this space for a production, a play or a musical production, they could be selling, snacks at intermission time out there, or they could be gathering out there for coffee. We could be gathering out there for coffee, yet be so close to the Memorial Garden. For people that are having a memorial here, it'd be so lovely to have the garden that close. There's all kinds of wonderful reasons. We just aren't sure we can afford it yet. And we want, the PDC wants you to know, we're not going into debt for this project. We're going to spend what we have from the land and the fundraising, and we're going to spend it very wisely. And we're not going to be doing something extra if we can't afford it. So right now we're not sure, and we don't think we can, but we'll find out. So assuming that we get through all the feasibility exercise on the steel, the little bit of steel we're going to put under these beams, and the way that we're going to attach them, and the rest of the design, and we get through a costing exercise. We're doing that right now. As soon as assuming we get through figuring out that we can afford what you're seeing right here, C1, the base case, and structurally our building is all set up for it. Then we will return to the parish and the congregation for some really full consultation on this, because that's what we'll be asking you to make a decision about, either at vestry or at a special vestry afterwards if we're not ready in time for vestry. So you might be thinking, well, this is pretty quick consultation, but rest assured, we'd be coming back with finalized plans and telling you the costs and telling you the schedule and telling you how it's all going to pay for itself before we ever ask you to approve it. So stay tuned for that. Right now we're planning to do that in January with vestry approval at the end of February. Costs. That was the third thing I wanted to talk about. Vestry last February approved a budget pretty close to $480,000 for what we would spend this year getting ready for all this work we're going to do before shovels get on the ground. Now, that was subject to us having enough money. and we approached the diocese for a loan. We asked for $600,000, and the diocese gave us a bridge loan for $300,000. So we've had to sort of scale back. We had to put the brakes on a little bit and slow down a little bit to just spend what we have, because we're not going to spend more than we have available to us. And so far this year, we have spent about $233,000 on this project, on 10 different specialists that have been helping us with it, including our architects and project managers and engineers and the rest of it, to get to the stage that we're at right now. We have about $210,000 of uncommitted funds available still in our Seize the Day budget for the rest of the year. We're not going to spend that in the rest of the year. There's only 8 weeks left. So we will significantly underspend the budget this year for what we had planned to spend. But that just means we'll have funds to spend to keep us going into 2025 because our sort of large influx of funds will come when we sell the land, and we're a ways away from doing that. It is possible, depending on how long the district strings us out and when we can find someone to buy the land, we may need to top up that bridge loan from the district, or sorry, from the diocese. But we're not really talking about that yet. We haven't raised that with the diocese. On the good news, I think that's good news too, in the sense that we're not overspending here. But other good news is we've applied for a grant from the Government of Canada called the GC Wood Grant. We've applied for a total of $1.35 million in financing for this project. $350,000 for design work, and if we prove to them that our idea is wonderful and feasible with that money that they give us to do it, then we would be eligible for up to $1 million of construction costs to build that stuff. So we won't hear probably until the grant application went in 1st of October. They wanted 6 or 8 weeks to look at it, so sometime before the end of the year, we hope to hear whether or not we get the first tranche of money, which would be $350,000. We would be using that to do some of our final design and construction work on figuring out all the drawings and everything that's going to be needed to figure out how thick to make the insulation, the sweater on the roof, and a bunch of other things. So stay tuned, but if you hear in the newsletter something, 3 or 5 weeks from now, hallelujah, we got the GC Wood Grant, it could be the first $350,000, which would be very exciting for us. 2 minutes. Okay, so that's good. That's just about the right time, because next steps was the last thing I wanted to talk about. We're doing business planning now, looking at both for during construction and post-construction, looking at, how much rent can we make out of these spaces after we're finished, and how are we going to deal with all of our tenants during the construction period. And what costs are we going to have to sort of adjust our lives for what could be about a 12-month construction period. So we're working on that right now, and expect by Vestry to have to be presented with the business plan for how this will all work. We'll know the costs at the time, and we'll have a better idea of the schedule, and we'll have a better idea of how we're going to fit our tenants in the new building. Although I will say, I'm very encouraged by the preliminary business planning we've done. We have a lot of great rentable space. When we're finished, in our basement, that indoor play area, the choir room, and that room back here, that's going to allow us to have 3 tenants at the same time for whether it be an AA meeting or a language class or an art class or whatever. We're going to, and I would also say we're engaging Colliers to give us a hand to identify another anchor tenant or 2 who would be able to use this sanctuary space for something during the week that would be very compatible with our values. So stay tuned on that. We will be working with the district and Colliers over the next couple of months. We'll be refining this Plan C. We'll be getting the costs, consulting with you folks again, probably in January. I don't want to do it a week before vestry, so I'm really hoping that we'll have all the information to come back to you with in January with much bigger drawings and much more finalized ones, and our business plan and our costs. Then at vestry, we'd approve a budget for next year, hopefully approve the design and the plan, the design, the shape of the new building, and the business plan for how it's going to get paid for. Land sale probably towards the second half of next year, be my guess, would be the time when we would be selling the land. And our schedule of construction currently would see us getting our building permits in October, so a year from last month. We would be shuffling over into the gym and its basement in about the last couple of months of 2025. About 12 months of construction, we'd be able to return to the sanctuary in late 2026. So that's sort of the rough schedule. And we had there was a time, we had a wonderful service once in the chapel about a year ago, and we thought, oh, could we hang on to the chapel during construction? That'd be really nice. And we're not sure if we're going to be able to do that because it's very expensive for us to be trying to squat here and use this while people are tearing things around and digging holes and things. But we had an idea recently that the Mary Pellet Room it's about the size of the chapel, and it could be set up quite beautifully as our worship space too for that period. And then when that all finishes by the end of 2026, we would take the gym down starting then at the end of 26 and early 27. So with that's the update. Come and gather around these drawings and have a better look at them. We might spread them out a little bit more for you. And feel free to ask Janet or Chris or Heather or me any questions, unless you want to ask it right now, Lynn. Yeah.